When you were 6 years old, you learned that your emotions were less important than everyone else's peace. Maybe you were sitting on the edge of the couch, listening to the arguments at home. Maybe you were holding your breath at the dinner table, measuring the temperature of the room before speaking. You didn't have words for it back then, but you knew a fight could break out at home at any moment, and somehow it was your job to prevent it. This is how a child disappears, not all at once, not dramatically. If you grew up too early, you didn't just lose your childhood. You gained a nervous system wired for crisis, a heart conditioned to give before receiving, and a mind that never stops asking, am I safe? Am I enough? Am I too much? You always asked yourself these questions. By the end of this video, you'll learn 7 signs that you were forced to grow up too early. And more importantly, you'll understand what it has cost you all these years. Even now, as an adult, you enter spaces the way a soldier enters uncertain terrain. You scan the atmosphere of every room you walk into. You assess it. You adapt accordingly. Before speaking, you measure the emotional temperature. Before laughing, you make sure it's safe to laugh out loud. You've been doing this for so long that you don't even notice it anymore. But your body does. Your chest tightens. You struggle to breathe because you're constantly on high alert. You burn out psychologically fast. When you were little, this wasn't a skill, it was survival. You learned to predict your father's mood from the sound of his footsteps. You learned to soothe your mother before she even asked, how are you? You turned into a robot that constantly regulated the emotions of the environment around you. And now you can't turn that robot off. At some point, you became the therapist in your own home. You were the one who absorbed the tension so that others wouldn't have to feel it. Your family came to you with problems a child should never have to carry. Maybe they cried in front of you. Maybe they leaned on you, not as a child, but as a confidant. Or maybe they just let you see too much, too early. Now, listen to me carefully. This part is very important. You didn't just grow up too early. You grew up in reverse. You parented your parents. You forgot yourself for the grief, anger, and fear that were never yours to carry. And you adopted the phrase, this is what I'm here for. Now, in your adult relationships, you're always the one who gives. And when someone asks if you need anything, you freeze because no one ever taught you what the word need actually means. You carry responsibility like a second skeleton. When someone is upset, you assume it's your fault. When something goes wrong, you mentally replay every choice you made, searching for where you failed. You apologize for existing, for having needs, for always feeling like either too much or not enough. This is what happens when a child is held responsible for adult emotions. You internalize a lie. If I had been better, calmer, smaller, more helpful, everyone would have been fine. And now you live as though you owe the world an apology just for breathing. Extreme independence is not strength. It is a trauma response. Early on, you learned that asking for help came at a cost. Maybe it was met with sighs, with anger, or with the cold reminder that you were being inappropriate. So you stopped asking. You learned to do everything on your own without needing anyone. And now the idea of leaning on someone feels unbearable. Vulnerability feels like weakness. Receiving support feels like debt. But here's the truth. The people who taught you that having needs was wrong were the ones who couldn't carry their own burdens, let alone yours. It was never your fault. Imagine this. You're 8 years old. You fall off your bike and scrape your knee. You go inside, clean yourself up, and don't tell anyone because you already know that crying would only make things harder. Now imagine this. You're 32 years old and you're drowning. A friend offers to help. You smile and say, I'm fine. Same wound, just 10 years apart. You tie your worth to your productivity, to being useful, to everything you can do, carry, and accomplish. Sitting still feels wrong. Doing nothing feels like failure. You can't relax without guilt creeping in. The voice inside says, you should be doing something. You're wasting time. You don't deserve this. It makes sense. When you were little, your worth was conditional. You were loved when you were helpful, quiet, responsible, easy. So you learned, if I stop performing, I stop mattering. As Jung said, everything that remains unconscious eventually enters our lives as fate. You're not lazy. You're not lacking. You're simply exhausted from a lifetime of believing that your existence requires proof. Your boundaries are paper thin. Saying no feels like betrayal, like injustice, like you're breaking an invisible contract you signed when you were very small. You over explain. You soften your boundaries with apologies. You let people take more than they can give, and then you blame yourself for feeling depleted. Because when you set a boundary as a child, you were punished, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly. Your no was met with coldness, blame, or rage, so you learned to abandon your own needs to keep the peace. And now, trying to make everyone happy isn't kindness anymore. It's a survival pattern you can't let go of. Love should have been safe, mutual, and gentle, but for you, it feels like weight. You're always one wrong step away, one breath away from being too much. Love feels like an endless race you have to win every single day, something you must constantly re-earn. You don't know how to be loved without working for it, without striving, without conditions. Compliments feel suspicious. Calm feels like the moment before a storm. You prepare for abandonment even when no one is trying to leave. Because when you were little, love was conditional and inconsistent. It was something that could be taken away if you weren't good enough. And now, you still love as though you're trying to prove you deserve to be stayed for. Stop. Let that sink in. If even three of these signs touch something inside you, then you didn't just grow up too early. You were condemned to grow up completely alone, even with all those people around you. So, what now? To start reclaiming what you lost. Give the role you played a name. Say it out loud. I was the caretaker. I was the emotional regulator, but that was never my job. Naming it breaks the spell. Learn to receive in small steps. Let someone buy you a coffee. Let someone carry something heavy for you. Let someone ask, how are you? And actually answer. Start small. Your nervous system needs to learn that having needs isn't dangerous. Write this question in your journal and let your inner child answer, what was the thing no one gave you back then? Don't rush. Don't edit. Just listen. And here's the truth no one ever told you. Saying it wasn't that bad was a lie you told yourself to escape the reality that it was, in fact, very bad. Even if others had it worse, you have every right to grieve the childhood you never got to live. Pain cannot be compared. Your experience is real. You were not born to carry the weight of the entire world on your own. You were born as a kind, curious child, open to beauty, before the world taught you how dangerous it was to be good-hearted. And the fact that you survived by becoming the person they needed doesn't mean you have to stay that way forever. You are not a burden. You are not excess. And you are not responsible for everyone else's peace. You need rest. You need to say no. You need to stop proving your worth. The child you once were is still inside you, quietly waiting for you to say, "You can let go now. You're safe. You're enough. You always were." And by subscribing to our channel, would you like to join us on the journey to brighter days? Remember, we'll always be here right beside you. Until next time, take care of yourself.